Hey everyone, welcome back to DemDMs. I'm Panda Ghost.
I'm Fox Ghost.
And I'm Matt.
And today we're going to be discussing the playtest for DnD. So if everyone's ready, let's slide on in.
Yeah, so I guess just to start this one off, I mean, we asked in our previous Fixing 5e video where we talked about Feats, if people wanted us to react to the UA, and we did get some feedback from people saying they would prefer that we did. So we're going to give it a shot here.
Yep.
I think I've read it probably, at this point a couple weeks ago when it first came out. You guys are coming into this fresh.
Yep. And I was very against reading it, but I guess the viewers have spoken, and here I am reading it.
Yeah,
but
I guess it's a good thing. I mean, we're talking about Fixing 5e, and this is actually attempting to do that, right?
Yes.
So we'll give it a shot, see what the promotional material is. Maybe, we'll have some more points that we want to hit or we might not necessarily agree with, but if you want to hear more of our thoughts, we do have two Fixing 5e videos out currently. One talking about critical hits and another one talking about feats that we just did a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So be sure to check those out as well. All right, guys. Start at the beginning, I guess.
Yes.
So let's look at this here. So we are going to start with the character races.
Yeah.
So first things first, right? Ability scores are no longer tied to your race.
Yeah, I immediately don't like that. Not because I'm like, old, OG over here, like 3.5. I know we reference 3.5 a lot. I mean, that is a part of it, right? Like, in real life, an elephant, right, is always going to be stronger than a human, no matter how strong a human gets, right? Like,
sure.
Like, why wouldn't a dwarf have a bonus to Constitution, right? It just kind of makes sense. Sure, you might have a dwarf that lacks in Constitution compared to other dwarves, right? But they're still going to be better at it than on average, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the goal there is to allow you to kind of make the build you want, like, easier to do.
And I get that, and my suggestion would be not having it tied to background, but having it tied to your class. Because, like, if you're a fighter, you're going to be fighting every day, right? You're going to be building up those muscles as you fight,
well,
right?
How about this? I mean, it's stated in the, and we'll get a little bit more into this later, but it's stated into the ability score idea for this that you get either 2 to 1 and 1 to another, or 1 to 3 different ones. What if the idea of your race gives you 1 to 2 different ability scores, and then you have one based off of your background that you can apply based off.
Yeah,
of
I like that more.
The +2 is given to you by your race, and then the +1 is given to you by your background.
Or you could split the +2 into 2 +1s.
Right.
Based off your race, but yeah, I think that
it's funny. I
I
literally had that same thought. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Interesting. Again, as with all this stuff, guys, obviously this is all playtest. Who knows where the changes are going to happen over the course of this, but we're going to take this at face value of what they're presenting here.
Yes, and I will say, quick announcement, or if you have feedback about this, make sure you go down, I'll leave a link in the description to go and leave your feedback to Wizards of the Coast. They do have the survey. I encourage that everyone go submit their feedback to that. I know I will be.
Yeah, I think we're going to try to do that on our own after talking with our group as well and seeing, different thoughts. But definitely make sure you do that because nothing's going to change if nobody gives feedback. So
exactly.
Make sure we do that. Looking at the first one up here, going back to races, the first one up, the human, right? So we have, typical what we've been seeing for most of them. They're medium, speed 30, their resourceful feature is the first new feature for the human, where you gain inspiration whenever you finish a long rest. I'm not opposed to that. I think especially if you're taking away the kind of like +1 to everything that kind of made the human a little bit more jack of all tradesy pet creation. I think this is kind of giving that back in a sense. With the 2 other features, the skillful, which gives you a proficiency in 1 skill of your choice, and the versatile, which then gives you the skilled feat or another first level feat.
Right.
It's kind of compounding that, right? Humans are skilled, or they are knowledgeable of different things because they're. I mean, this kind of goes into what the idea behind the variant human was supposed to be, where humans are inherently more get up and go and innovative because of their generally shorter lifespans compared to the other races.
Yeah, I have a problem with the resourceful feature itself. Not the feature itself, but how they've changed inspiration.
Sure.
And I want to talk about that later on. So we'll just put a pin in that for now, I think.
Yeah.
No, I think not. You don't get any ability score improvement at first level when. Yeah.
Well, again, based off of this, you are getting it just
That's
in your
true.
background, but
That's true. But
and I would say out of all of the races, the human's probably the one where I'm least concerned about it, because the human is not specific to any real thing, right? Like, it's always kind of been choose whatever you want for the human in terms of ability scores. So they're the ones I care about this kind of new way of doing it the least. When you get into some other races that are, in previous editions, or even in 5th edition, canonically better at certain things than other races, it just kind of evens the playing field, and I'm not sure that's always the right thing to do.
Right.
But yeah.
I think it. I don't know. It just seems like it's the resourcefulness just doesn't seem
like a counterbalance to it.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like a counterbalance to the things that some of the other classes get. I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
It also feels kind of like a bit of a shoehorn to try and get the new inspiration mechanic in.
Sure,
but that's just me. That's just me.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the inspiration, because I think that kind of is giving us talking about that more will help kind of impact what we're trying to get across here.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that when we get a little bit further here. All right, the next race on the list is a new race to D&D 5e, the Ardling. I'm going to make my statements pretty simple here. Why didn't they just make this the Aasimar race, and rather than create a whole new race? It seems kind of needless, because in all intents and purposes, the Aasimar race is still in 5th edition, right?
Right. It just doesn't have an updated block for it.
And I think it seems like that and the Ardling are inherently the same thing, or meant to possibly be the same thing.
I don't know if I don't remember seeing the Aasimar in here, and I don't know if they will re-release the Aasimar in any of these 1D&D books, right?
Yeah.
So we might not get Aasimar back. And if we don't get Aasimar back, I think this is actually a better replacement for it, right?
Interesting.
Because I think the Aasimar in 5th edition is broken and overpowered.
Yeah. I guess my
point is really strong.
Why not fix the Aasimar and then put it in here, rather than create a new one?
Well, because I think they wanted to use it as a catch-all for a lot of like these different beast races.
Sure.
I could kind of just but like you have like these different beasts. Like I get what they're going with. I don't think it succeeded, because they have the angelic flight feature, which, like, if you're a bear, why does a bear have wings?
Well, I don't think you have features of that. Do you?
Well, so kind of breaking it down here, you have 3, what essentially they're giving off as sub races, which is exalted, heavenly, and idyllic. It's kind of the idea that based off of whatever upper plane your celestial inheritance is from. right?
Right.
Is kind of fits into one of these three categories. So you get Angelic Flight, which gives you, as a bonus action, you can sprout spectral wings and move up to a number of feet equal to your speed. And if you are in the air, you fall and nothing is holding you aloft. You can use the bonus action a number of times per your proficiency bonus, per long rest. But where they get further is this Celestial Legacy, which is kind of also then brought into the suggested animal characteristic that you have.
Right.
It doesn't say anything in the text about you have characteristics of that animal. I thought that animal just represented kind of your... I don't know. Like
it says that an Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal.
Oh, where did...
It's
I see it now. Okay.
There, yeah.
It was kind of buried in there, so I'm like, wait, what? Okay.
Yeah, so
yeah, that's a little weird.
It's interesting. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's meant to be a counterbalance to the tiefling, right? And again, I think you could have done that and just done it off the Aasimar because
right.
They're very similar races, right? In terms of like what they give you as well as the concept behind them, and it just seems like randomly decided to just not care about the Aasimar anymore. You know what I mean?
I mean, I will say I don't hate it, but I think it was just a weird direction.
Yeah. But you get spells at different levels based off of which one you choose. At first, third, and fifth.
You make a good cleric, it looks like.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you get to choose what ability score your spellcasting ability for those spells is, either intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. Which, based off of, if you're, depending on what class you end up choosing, you probably choose whatever aligns best with that. And similar to what we're going to see later on in certain feats and things like that, you can cast it again if you have spell slots.
Yeah, you can use associated spell slots now, which I think is a really good addition.
Yeah.
And we see, like you said, we see that throughout the list.
Yeah. And a big part of this is they also get resistance to radiant damage. Not a whole lot of things that players fight in 5th edition does radiant damage. But, it's a resistance, which is pretty powerful in itself. So
yeah.
Moving on then to the Dragonborn.
Has anything changed?
I don't think a couple of things. So the breath weapon is the major one here. So the breath weapon, it used to kind of be based off of what damage or what dragon type rather you had, what shape your breath weapon took. Now it's simply just a 15-foot cone. And the damage used to kind of grow with your level in terms of number of dice. Now it's a flat D10, but then you add your level on top of that. I think, it used to grow, I think, just from previously looking at it, I think like at a 6th level, you got 3d6, where you normally start off at 2d6. You eventually get to 3d6 at 6th level, 4d6 at 11th. And basically, your average is probably better this way, but you're not able to do as much of damage if you do the max calculation. It's actually a couple points less.
Why didn't they just cantrip scale it? At a D10. Like that would have been like simple done.
Yeah. But what they did do, which is nice, is the overall character level, which makes sense because it's your racial feature. So, if you multi-class, it doesn't affect that, which is nice.
But proficiency bonus doesn't care about your what classes you take either. So
do we? I don't remember. Did Dragonborn give you dark vision?
I don't think so.
Previously, so that might be
I'll double check.
I mean, it makes sense. You're part dragon. You should be able to see in the dark. So they didn't have it in the original.
That's a good addition.
All right, moving on to the dwarf. These are actually the changes I liked the most from the races, or I think that were like really good, smart additions. They do have, the standard dark vision. They do have dwarven resilience and dwarven toughness, which used to be what the hill dwarf got.
Which was the most dwarfy of the dwarfs.
Yeah. I like the forge wise, where they get tool proficiency of 2 tools of their choice. And the stone cunning is now that you can, as a bonus action, gain tremor sense to a range of 60 feet for 10 minutes.
Yes.
While touching the stone. That is
pretty
good. That's really useful, especially in a dungeon setting, or in the Underdark.
Or if you're fighting on kegs or something like that.
But you no longer get advantage on learning things about different stones. So depending on how people use that in the past, obviously I think you're getting more utility out of the tremor sense. But
you are 100%.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, all good things. I mean, you could still, as a DM, choose to give them advantage on something like that if it makes sense.
And I honestly, I like the move that they made where they lumped all the dwarves into one. I feel like the sub-dwarf races were needlessly convoluted.
Split. Yeah. Moving on to the elves.
I'm angry.
Oh, feisty. All right.
I'm a little salty.
All right, explain why, sir.
They got rid of the elven weapon feature proficiency. Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. Shit.
Yeah, they got rid of that, and so wood elves and high elves both had the weapon proficiency, and then high elves got cantrip, and wood elves got a feature that I don't know how many people used, but it was Mask of the Wild, which let you, if you're obscured by rain or foliage, lets you take the high. It's something with that and hiding.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact wording of it.
So a couple things that I noticed that I think it's not that big of a deal. They just kind of move some things around. They got rid of the magic can put you to sleep thing from the Fey Ancestry and moved that down to the trance. Again, not a big deal there. But I think in terms of the wood elf and the high elf gets the prestidigitation cantrip, but whenever they finish a long rest, they can change it to any other cantrip on the arcane spell list.
That's pretty strong.
And the wood elf gets the druid craft, plus they still have the speed increase to 35 feet. And then at 3rd level, they get long strider, and 5th level, they get pass without a trace. So I can see them saying, like, the pass without a trace and long strider is kind of giving you, or obviously more so the pass without a trace, giving you that kind of similar thing to the...
Yeah, and don't forget, it only allows you, from the original 5e rules, it only allows you to hide in lightly obscured.
Lightly obscured.
So, most of the time, when you can hide, there's going to be things to hide behind. I don't think anyone ever really used it.
I used it to great effect, so I'm a little salty about that one. But I'm more a little annoyed with the weapon proficiencies.
Yeah, the weapon proficiency is definitely kind of something strange.
Now, it was often, because I often use that, playing a rogue, being able to get a longbow proficiency. Yeah, it seems like all the magic casting races got expanded upon in terms of their casting abilities from their racial traits.
Sure.
Which is probably a good thing.
Moving on to the gnome. The gnome gives you, the gnomish cunning gives you advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws.
Which is the same.
You have gnomish lineage, which is similar to the elf lineage and the Ardling lineage and, all those things, where you kind of choose, it's the sub-races.
I'm actually surprised they kept that, considering they got rid of it on a lot of other races.
Yeah, it seems very similar to, what I think the original idea for the hill dwarf and the, mountain dwarf. It just seems like, I don't know. I'm not sure if I necessarily need the separation between the two. But I
Yeah.
also, I don't know.
No one in our group really plays gnomes.
Yeah, I feel like the rock gnome has always been one that I've never really seen
Cared
anyone
about.
play.
Yeah.
The rock gnomes is kind of like the stepping stone to artificer,
Yeah.
in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, if you're an artificer, you might want that. But yeah, not much to be added there. On to the halflings. You still get brave, which is advantage on saving throws you make to avoid being frightened, or end the frightened condition on yourself, or avoid it. Which, I think that we saw that you had lightfoot halflings and the stout halflings, so they're kind of combining those here. Which is it's interesting where they chose to keep the split still happening, and when they chose to, I feel like the difference between wood elf, high elf, and drow is, in my mind, different than forest and rock gnomes.
Right, because there's different cultures between the three elves. Gnomes, we don't really see a lot of gnome culture, so
yeah.
I feel like gnomes are, and kind of halflings too, are. I find them to be very underrepresented in D&D campaigns. Actually,
yeah.
I see a lot of people, at least currently, take the halfling that gives you the luck ability, but other than that, it's not really.
That's like because people like to min-max, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. But they still get halfling nimbleness, where they can hide in somebody's shadow, basically.
Yep.
And move through them.
My sneaky boys.
Or sorry, they can move through them. It has nothing to do with fighting.
But they have the naturally stealthy, though. Yeah.
But it gives you proficiency in the stealth,
Yeah.
Next is Orc, and we're going to talk about this real quick. So they got rid of the half races.
Yeah, which...
Which, in a certain extent, I mean, did anybody ever take half elf and be like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you normally would just take elf, for the most part.
Unless you were a charisma-based class, half elf was kind of nice for those.
But with the idea that now you can do things through your background, you can still get that charisma from, a human or an elf. But they did put in the optional rules for doing half parentage, where you decide what two races made up your parentage, and you choose one of them for your stats, and then you can combine the two for appearance, which means nothing in effect of the game. So realistically, it's like you just you pick whatever race you want, and then you could say, oh yeah, I'm a halfer, which okay, cool. So they got rid of half orc because of this, and half elf, and now we have orc, which you have the adrenaline rush, where you can take the dash action as a bonus action.
Yep.
When you do so, and you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. And you can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish the long rest. Really useful, awesome for barbarians. Or any real martial class.
Mostly barbarian.
I mean, any class could really benefit from this, true. Right? I mean, the ability to dash as a bonus action as a rogue at first level rather than having to wait till second.
That's true.
That's one level of something you're saving.
Yeah,
there, I guess.
That's very true.
And you're getting
monks as well.
Monks
wouldn't have to spend a key point.
Yeah, exactly. And just any class could really benefit from this. I mean, we talked about before in our Fixing 5e Feats video about having something that would give you the dash action as a bonus action, or cunning action in general, but more so concerned with the dash. But yeah, interesting. Like that. Kind of resembles the feature, I want to say it's aggressive, that is it hobgoblins or orcs? I think it might be orcs that get it, that where they can use their
it's
bonus action to dash towards an enemy or something like that.
Yes, it is. They get it as a
Yeah, so that makes sense. Dark vision, out to range 60 feet, makes sense. Powerful build, cool.
Carry stuff.
No one really
about the powerful build though.
Yes.
Does that count for it doesn't say it, but would that count towards like things like grappling and stuff as well or not?
Well, it specifically says when determining your carrying capacity.
Yeah.
So that's
okay.
all that it matters for.
Okay, so that's not that big of a deal.
No.
Never mind. That would have been cool. That would have been, I mean, maybe a little too strong if it for grappling and things like that.
Sure.
But yeah.
Um,
It's fine.
Relentless endurance. We've had from half orcs before.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Still nice to have.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean,
Orcs seem pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Well,
orcs
I mean,
orcs
they are
pretty good
missing.
ways,
Well, since they got rid of the half orcs had the relentless attack or something like that. Savage attack.
brutal critical, or what? That's I'm thinking barbarian. You're right.
Yeah, savage attack, which let you add another
damage dice.
Another damage dice when you crit. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, trade off with that with adrenaline rush, which you can use every round. I mean,
yeah, I think I'd rather take adrenaline rush over that.
I mean, if let's say if you're a first or second level, let's just go with first. That's easier. Since we're talking about starting off characters here, first level character having the ability to dash as a bonus action, and then get temporary hit points on top of that equal to so at that level would be 2, and then do that twice. That can save a first level character from death. Trade-offs, I mean, it would be vastly outpaced in terms of damage, but I feel like this is something that can happen every round, whereas the critical was more, again, when you crit.
Yeah.
So
no, I like the orc. I think it's a good spot right now.
Moving on to the tiefling.
Yes, I think tiefling is last here.
Yeah, kind of similar to the Ardling, we have kind of that new sub-race based off of what version of the lower planes you hail from. And we have that you have dark vision with out to a range of 60 feet. Fiendish Legacy, which again is based off of what of the 3 you choose, either Abyssal, Chthonic, or Infernal. Abyssal gives you resistance to poison damage, and you also know the poison spray cantrip. You then get Ray of Sickness at 3rd and Hold Person at 5th. Chthonic is resistance to necrotic, and you gain the Chill Touch cantrip, and you get a 3rd level spell of False Life and a 5th level spell of Ray of Enfeeblement, kind of focusing on the necromancy there. And then Infernal is resistance to fire damage, and the Firebolt cantrip, Hellish Rebuke, and Darkness, which is the 5th edition. Currently, that's the version of Tiefling you're probably most familiar with. I like it. I like being able to choose what type of damage type I'm resistant to. This is a lot more useful in terms of that than the Ardling, because fire damage, necrotic damage, and poison damage are going to come up a heck of a lot more often.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially fire damage.
Yeah. The Abyssal being able to do Hold Person. If you go Tiefling Barbarian and you cast Hold Person on somebody, or you go Abyssal Tiefling and go Rogue, you're essentially giving yourself advantage on all those attacks, and they're considered.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah.
So
that'll be devastating.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. And then you have your otherworldly presence, where you get the Thaumaturgy cantrip. But when you cast it, the spell, you can obviously use it based off of whatever
intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
Yeah, intelligence, wisdom, charisma that you chose. All good things. Something that I did forget to note as we were kind of going through here, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, all of the races now have 30-foot movement speed. So
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so your
holy crap.
Gnomes, halflings, they're now up to a 30-foot movement speed.
That's fine. I mean, it really, and the fact that Wood Elves get 35, it doesn't. It's like splitting hairs. I feel like.
Yeah. All right, so I think that covers it for races. So let's slide on into the background section, shall we?
So my immediate thing was the build your own background, and I really liked it. I kind of did that for my current character Gary, and I found it to be quite useful. The only thing I saw that I would change is the way it is current. So if you're making it in D&D Beyond, if you're making a custom background, it gives you your two skill proficiencies, and then you can choose between a tool proficiency, a language proficiency, or two tool proficiencies or two language proficiencies.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, obviously.
So that's the only thing I would change, is giving you the option to forego a language for a tool proficiency or a tool proficiency for a language. That's the only thing I would add.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is around when we're going to start talking about ability scores. So, I mean, we touched on that briefly in the races part of this. Obviously, it's now part of your backgrounds, and you're kind of given free reign as to which abilities you want to assign the +2 and +1. I kind of like what we talked about during the races section, where the race maybe gives you the +2, and you can assign the +1 based off of your background. That I kind of agree with.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't make sense if your background is like an apprentice blacksmith.
Sure.
You're gonna get stronger being a blacksmith.
Yeah,
there's no way you're having an 8 strength as a blacksmith. You're not gonna make it.
Yeah, exactly. So, because one thing people gotta remember is a 10, a +0, is an average human being.
So yeah, and then on top of that, I mean, you talked about the skill tools and languages. I don't think there's much new there. So moving on to the biggest topic, I think, of this section is choosing a first level feat based off of your background. So every character is now going to get a leveled feat, in this case, first level. And your background is what you assigns you that feature. I like it. This again, not to be a 3.5 snob, but it reminds me of 3.5.
Yep.
Where everybody got a feat at first level. And I like it.
Yes.
I also like
very much so.
I also like the feats they chose for these first level feats. And we'll get more into that in a little bit here, but they feel like it would make sense to take them at first. I like it. That's a good change. I think that makes sense.
Yep.
And then last thing in this section, really, because we're not going to go through each of the sample ones because that would be crazy and take too long, is that the equipment is a same amount of gold piece value for whatever background you choose. It's 50 gold pieces. Even if you go and use one of the sample backgrounds, they chose equipment that added up to that 50 gold piece value. So this gets everybody off on the same playing field. It's you're not going to get that one player that always picks the noble background because they want the gold at first level. Although, maybe that should be a consideration. If you're a wealthy person as opposed to a street urchin, maybe you should have different gold value. But
yeah, I mean, but again, like early on or later on, that small difference, like it really becomes a small difference in gold really quick.
I just realized they got rid of the flaws, bonds,
and
ideals,
personality traits.
Yeah, they got rid of the personality traits.
They're a pain in the ass. I'm glad they got rid of them. Like, having to roleplay a character within these certain bounds is a pain, right? Like, they never work out for like, if you're trying to do a specific kind of character, like...
Yeah, but I mean, nothing was ever stopping you from setting your own bonds, flaws, and ideals and stuff. And I think they should have at least kept not having a table for them, maybe, but at least keeping them in there, because it definitely kept it keeps me like, okay, how would my character?
Sure.
Well,
Yeah, it gets
we don't have a
perceived
sample
as-
character sheet. It might still be on there, right?
That's true.
It could still be on there. Again, this is UA. Maybe they didn't flush everything out, but like you were saying, Fox. It was definitely useful for new players as well, who maybe they haven't really done a lot of role play in the past, so it kind of helped them at least get some inspiration.
It was
on
funny because, like, there was the one time in a current campaign where you asked me a question,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I have this written down in my ideals,
Yeah.
and it just fits so perfectly. I'm like, this is why we do this stuff.
Yeah.
But I also get Panda's point about rolling it from the table is kind of terrible. Actually, no, it's really terrible.
Yeah. I think maybe the idea could be you should think about these 4 topics and giving like a description of what those 4 topics are,
Yes.
but not give you a set table. Maybe I could see
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Um,
I agree with that.
But yeah, good point. All right. Well, I think that covers backgrounds. So let's slide on into starting languages here. Yeah. So as far as I can tell, not much has changed. You get a total of 3.
Yep.
Which one of them is 2 of them you choose just off of what you want, and then one of them is from your background.
Which they got rid of a language from your race.
Well, yeah, but I think the intention is that everybody gets common, right? And
Right,
then you get
but
a language provided by your background, then you also get a language that you could choose outside of that. And I think a lot of like elves are still going to take Elvish. Right.
Yeah, but you could also be an elf that doesn't have Elvish, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, but I mean,
it depends on the setting. It would depend on the setting.
Yeah, you could have just not have grown up around elves.
Right.
Yeah, if
most
you're an
of your life,
urchin
right?
that didn't learn Elvish.
Yeah,
Right?
I guess it does
It's
make
possible.
it can make
Also,
sense.
so they did add sign language, and I'm like, wait, this would be perfect for a rogue.
I know that's exactly what I was thinking.
I'm like,
would
oh
be
man,
incredibly
that's
useful.
good. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, that's actually a pretty good addition.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to be able to use like when you're trying to stealth and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, not much has really changed outside. I think that's the only one that's really been added.
Oh, they actually have Thieves' Cant in the rare table.
Yeah, they had it in the
Thieves'
in
Cant
the
what?
5th edition ones too. Hilarious.
Thieves can't not be awesome.
Yes.
It's double negative.
But otherwise, I think that's pretty straightforward here. Feats. Let's talk about feats, shall we, gentlemen?
Yes.
First level feats, let's go!
Let's go.
I don't know if we want to go through each individual one. There's
No,
a
I don't
decent
think.
amount of them.
Yeah.
I like that they have reworked some feats from 5th edition.
Yeah, I actually have a lot to say about the alert feat.
Okay, let's get
boy.
into it. Right off the beginning, let's go.
Some good, some bad, right?
Okay,
I like
sure.
that it's off of your proficiency bonus instead of just a
Sure.
flat +5. So it does get better later on, but it
Yep.
also is now balanced early on, which is
Sure.
a good idea.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't like the swapping initiatives. I think it's a dumb idea. And because, so like the whole, maybe I've just been thinking of initiative the wrong way, but the way I've always thought of it is like, it's high noon and you're gonna, you're in there for a standoff draw, right? And your initiative is how fast your quick draw is, like if you're cowboy, right?
Yeah.
How
I guess the idea is
how are you
responsive
going to make someone else draw their gun faster? Right? It
Well,
doesn't.
it's not necessary because that's a little bit narrow in terms of perspective on it, because that's true because if you're on the outlook for and you're the one with the alert feat, and you're like the lookout, and you're getting ambushed, you could be like, you could yell out, ambush, but
Sure.
your teammates still have to react to you saying that. So
There's
their alertness will still depend on like it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
see where you're going.
I have two things with this. One, I mean, it kind of behooves your entire group then to take the alert feat, because then you can just choose whatever initiative order you want.
Yep.
But two, I am cool with the, like you said, the initiative proficiency that I like. They got rid of the "you can't be surprised."
Yeah, and I was gonna bring
rule.
that up.
Yeah, that's dumb. I don't know why they got rid of that.
I honestly think they should have just left it the way it was. I think
I wholeheartedly agree.
The change that they made with the initiative being off your proficiency bonus, that's
good.
That's good. I like that. And that, otherwise I think the feat was fine the way it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
I understand what they did or trying to do with the initiative swap. Like, you are the tactician, but in that combat to set your group up, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
The next one I really want to talk about is actually the next one down. And I promise, guys, I know it sounds like we're going through each and every one. We're not going to. But the next one I really want to talk about for one reason only. When you get to the faster crafting section of the crafter feat, where it says when you craft an item using a tool with which you have tool proficiency, the required crafting time is reduced by 20%.
Yep.
Now, that wording makes me interested, because they're specifically talking about crafting, you guys.
Yes,
and if you watch any,
they haven't before.
Right,
if you've ever watched any of our videos where we talk about 5e and what we don't like or what we hope to see, one of my big things is a crafting rule set for both magic items and regular crafting. This gets me very excited because of that.
Yep.
So we'll see if we get more from this. I hope we do. I think it would be really cool. I could see, anybody that wants to have some extra tool proficiencies, that was like a woods worker or something like that, like dwarves with their added tool proficiencies already would get even more use out of this. And it's awesome. Like this feat to me is like, hey, we made the dwarfiest dwarf, but do you want to dwarf that dwarfiest dwarf? Become a crafter, right? Like that seems the way to go, but I like it.
I just had a deep idea with that too, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a couple other things, just kind of scrolling through here. The lucky feat, you now get a number of lucky points equal to your proficiency bonus.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. I think that started with Tasha's, and we're seeing that show up a lot here is based off proficiency bonus, and I like that. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of outside of that, like a lot of the feats that seem like they would be really good for a specific class, like the musician or the healer, they're giving utility to people that aren't those classes.
Right.
But they are then enhancing someone that already is. Right. And I like that. I think that would be a good feat, Again, do you want to be the bardiest bard? Take the musician feat.
Yeah.
Right. Because then you can give anybody inspiration. As long as you take a shorter long rest. It
goes back into what we talked about earlier, talking about the whole change to inspiration. I have a problem with. Be nice if it was just it gives bardic inspiration instead.
Sure. Or something like a simple bardic inspiration die, and then anyone could really use that. Sure. Tavern Brawler gives you a few more interesting uses of the unarmed strike. So it would be really useful for a monk.
Yeah.
Because number one, you get the damage rerolls, which is awesome in itself. But then you also get the shove ability. That I think gives a little bit more utility to the already heavy utility of the monk. But I like it. And then of course they have the tough feat, which is the same it's always been, but it's makes sense that it'd be a first level feat. Now on to the core rules that we are presented with in this playtest packet. Biggest thing, in my opinion, the D20 test idea. first off, you rolling a 1 and rolling a 20 applies to everything.
Yeah,
Stupid.
that's a no for me, champ.
Not just attacks. It's now skills, saves, anything that you would roll a d20 for. A natural 20 is an automatic success. A natural 1 is an automatic failure.
Yep.
I have two things to say about this. I think it simplifies things, which is what they were going for 5th edition. So I get that. I'm also not opposed to rolling a natural 20 and having it be an auto success. The thing I don't like is I don't like when you roll a natural 20, which is not as infrequent as people might think. It happens quite frequently throughout the game that you get inspiration based off of that. And I think that's probably, just because it keeps coming up, I think that's probably our main gripe.
Yeah.
Is how inspiration works.
Yeah, but I do want to say with both the rolling a nat 1 you fail, roll a 20 you fail, right? I feel like both of those
Does
things.
Does that mean
Or you
that
succeed.
if I have a plus 15 to a skill,
Yeah,
and I roll in that 1, and I beat that DC, I
Yeah.
still fail it?
you still fail.
Correct.
So
is stupid.
both
That
are
is
a slap in the face to anyone that wants to specialize in a skill, because if someone rolls a 20, right, that they might have a minus 1 to a skill, right? Like, let's say they're trying to pick a lock and they have a minus 1, right? And they rolled the 20. Now they just picked the lock. Like, that's a slap in the face to the person that invested in lock picking. At the flip side, like, if you have someone that's trying to pick a lock and they have a plus 15 and they fail, it's a slap in the face to them for all their investment that they went into that one skill.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's giving in this instance kind of a it's bringing it back to the importance of the dice roll. But I think that the pluses are already not that crazy in 5th edition.
Sure.
That I don't
Dude,
think
I have a plus 15 and like 3 skills.
Yeah, but you're also 19th level.
You're also 19th level and have expertise in a bunch of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? That makes a little bit more sense than, I don't know.
But it does kind of devalue the rogue, right? It does devalue the rogue.
It devalues the rogue. I think everything else is kind of like, eh. Like, I'm not severely opposed to it. I'm just not.
I'm severely opposed to it.
Okay.
I am severely opposed to it.
So.
Because now, say a character wants to do something stupid, and you're like,
sure,
okay, roll for it, but you set a high enough DC where there's no way they could actually make it. Well, now if they roll a nat 20, well, they just fucking did it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that at least from the because there was a video that was put out alongside this, we didn't really mention that, but with Jeremy Crawford explaining a lot of these new rules, and his justification for this change was that a lot of groups were already playing this way.
And make it an optional rule. Don't make it the rule.
Sure. I think we'll see if anything's going to change. I think it's this, and I think it's also going to be the next thing we're going to talk about, which is critical hits. Those two seem like the ones that are probably going to change the most from the playtest in my mind, because I feel like those are the ones that are going to be the most divisive. So speaking of critical hits, let's get into it. Couple things. First, monsters can no longer crit. It is inherently only a player character feature. The player character can only crit on a weapon or unarmed strike, so no critting on spells. And I would like to get the wording of this, because something really gave me pause here. When you read this, it says, you roll the damage dice of the weapon or unarmed strike a second time, and add the second roll as extra damage to the target. And they give an example of a mace. And then they say, if your weapon or unarmed strike has no damage dice, it deals no extra damage on a critical hit.
Yes.
I'm concerned about the wording of this. Is this similar to how it's currently worded? Because if so, I'm fine. If not, what about sneak attack? Because that is not.
Oh,
You know what I mean? It is not the damage dice of the weapon. That is extra dice. That is doing damage of the same as the weapon type, but it is not the weapon damage dice.
Here's the rules for critical hits in current 5e.
Sure.
When you score a critical hit, you get to roll extra dice for the attack's damage against the target. Roll all the attack's damage dice twice and add them together. Then add any relevant modifiers as normal. To speed up play, you can roll. Yeah, okay.
That, I think I want a clarification on.
Yeah, because this sounds like smites.
The current wording, a sneak attack will not
Critical.
Crit. Or smite.
Or smite.
Well, smite's a spell, so of course it won't.
That's true. Well, it's
divine
a special
smite
ability.
is a special ability.
Smite's
It's not a spell.
It's not a spell. But similarly, though, it would still fall under this. I mean, this again, it's the roll the damage dice of the weapon is what it specifically says.
Right, it says weapon. So
I'm based off the wording, I'm leaning towards the idea that this does not double sneak attack.
Yeah.
Or smite.
We'd have to
see the class rules. It might say that you
Yeah.
add it to the weapon.
Yeah, it might clarify it that way.
Yeah, but it needs clarified.
Yeah, I mean, because I believe, based off of what you just read, that's why Brutal Critical in the Barbarian feature and the Savage Attack feature of the Half-Orc did not double as well. Because it is not the normal damage dice, right? Because it specifically says damage dice of the attack, right? This says weapon damage dice.
So here's the exact wording of sneak attack. Beginning at first level, you know how to strike subtly and exploit a foe's distraction. Once per turn, you can deal extra 1d6 damage to one creature you hit with an attack. If you have an advantage on the attack roll, the attack must use a finesse or ranged weapon. You don't need advantage on the attack roll if another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of him, that enemy isn't incapacitated, and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. The amount of damage dice increases, yada yada yada. So it doesn't say it's extra
I mean,
it says it's doing extra damage to the creature. It's not saying that the weapon is dealing extra damage.
Yeah, I'm inclined, again, like I said, based off this wording, to believe that's how it's being stated.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two things with that. One, you're not going to get the crazy, 86 points of damage that the rogue would do if they crit at higher levels, right? From one hit. Which, I don't know, it's very much depowering the rogue again.
Yeah.
Which we already knew based off of, 5th edition for the past few years. Rogues and paladins are one of the better damage outputting classes. So consistent damage outputting classes. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like, because yeah, sure, rogues and paladins deal a lot of damage, but so does a sorcerer or wizard that's chucking fireballs every round, right?
Sure. Yeah. But they don't then double that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right, but I feel like a rogue relies on those crits, right, to get... Because remember, a rogue can miss their attack, too, right?
Sure.
A fireball doesn't miss, right?
I mean, you could take less damage from it. But...
Sure, but you're still doing damage as long as they don't have... Your target doesn't have evasion, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I want to see the wording for rogue.
Yep.
Because I think that'll clear this up. And
Yeah.
maybe this is something that people have already addressed.
Even just taking it away from you can't critical on any spell, so you can't critical on Firebolt. That's
Sure.
Like I know the amount of spells that actually you roll a dice for is low, but it's still kind of stupid.
Yeah, I guess the idea is like, you know, let's take an arrow versus a firebolt, right? The idea of a firebolt is it's a 3-foot ball of fire coming at you. It's a lot harder to be precise for a critical hit as opposed to would be a arrow, but the firebolt would, effectively, if it hits you in the wrong spot, it's still going to hurt. You know what I mean? You have probably a wider damage.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
A scorching ray, you could hit someone in the face with it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be considered a critical? You were hitting someone in a vital part.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
you get my point.
Yeah, I get you. I'm with you. I mean, we didn't even talk about the other big thing, which is monsters can't crit.
Yeah, I think that's BS.
This is stupid. This is just these are just way too big of changes.
Well, because I think from going back to the video here, the justification was, oh, monsters have a critical feature. It's called their recharge ability. Okay, but not all monsters have a recharge ability. Are you telling me that they will? I don't know. Right. I haven't seen that, right? Based off of what I know from 5th edition, there is, ones that do, and they are a lot of damage. It's why they're a recharge ability. But they were, I don't know, a dragon, ancient red dragon raking you with its claws should be able to critical.
Yeah.
It seems stupid that it wouldn't.
Yeah, it's just, and it's just making the game, well, actually, I would say either too safe, right, because it's getting rid of crits, sure, right? Like, I know, I've talked about this before, I crit out the wizard very first attack in combat one time. But that, I mean, yeah, it sucks for the player, I guess, but, like, I mean, he took it as, like, a joke, right? It's a game, people. It's a game. It's not real life. It's a game.
Well,
right?
Also, I mean, at that same point, I mean, the DM always has the choice to, because they're rolling behind the screen, say it wasn't a critical if they think it's gonna kill them.
Unless you're on Roll20 and you have it on open rolls, which case you're screwed. Which was my case. But also, like, when you have those ridiculous moments where you accidentally crit out your player the very first round of combat, right? You get those funny stories that last with you a lifetime, right?
And also teaches your players, especially if they're new, hey, you can die at any moment.
Right, but, like, and I think this is a theme with this one D&D, they've made the game too safe, right?
Well, that's 5th edition. And
even 5th edition, but even more so with this, right? The fact that you get inspiration, like, if a unicorn farts sideways, right?
Yeah,
I don't like how safe this game is. Like,
it's leaning heavily towards the players, and you're removing the danger.
I know D&D is supposed to be a bit of a power fantasy, but this is just getting ridiculous at this point.
Like, people are going to get bored of D&D because there's going to be no challenge, right? There's going to be no fear. Well, there's going to be no stakes.
So there is no benefit if the DM rolls a natural 20. Ever. Aside from skill checks.
Right.
Right? Are you telling me... I mean, it specifically says a player character gains inspiration when they do this. So a natural 20 for a DM means nothing. Right? So
pretty much.
By that standard, a natural 1 should mean nothing too, in my opinion. Right? Because it's not you can't have it both ways. Right. But whatever.
But also, going back to, like, the whole Chris and, like, there's, like, oh, we're going to have these recharge abilities. Well, now you just gave a tool for adversarial DMs to be dickheads.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, like, if a recharge ability does comparable damage to a crit, and it's even on a recharge 6, right? That's way more likely to come up than a 20.
Yep.
like
Yeah.
it's just asking for like you to throw. I don't know. It's like just like, oh, we wanted to be safe, but we're also going to give tools for adversarial DMs to be adversarial DMs. Like,
Yeah.
which is it?
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? I mean, when you watch that video, you can see Jeremy Crawford kind of like dipping his toe in the water of being like, this might not go over well. And it's like, yeah, because it's not good.
Because it's
like,
not, like that's the
poor
worst
game
thing in
design.
this entire thing.
And this is why, like we said earlier, if you don't like things that they've come up with,
let them know.
fill out their survey.
Yeah.
Let them know.
Yeah. Moving on here, because we could complain about this one all day, but moving on, we have a couple of new condition ideas here. For grappled, you now have disadvantage on attack rolls while you are grappling? Or no, when you are being grappled.
Grappled.
Yeah.
Except for against the person who is grappling you.
Yeah, but so does
that kind of makes sense.
Does that mean you're getting rid of restrained?
Ooh.
Because what is the benefit of restraining you then? Are you giving then also disadvantage on that attacker, which seems very limiting?
Yeah.
But I also feel like sometimes the restrained condition only really ever comes up for monsters.
Yeah.
Whereas players can really only, at least from most of the stuff in the rules, can really only grapple somebody, which really does nothing. So I'm okay with this. I just, I think it's kind of combining the two is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
They might still have it
it
separate for like hold person, because like you're not actually touching someone to grapple them. You're restraining them through magical means.
Sure.
So I feel like they will keep the restrained condition, but mostly use it for like when you're not touching someone.
Sure. All right. Moving on to the incapacitated condition.
Yep. They improved the clarification for that, I think.
Sure. I mean, some of this is similar.
Yeah.
The main thing is the surprised, that if you are incapacitated when you roll initiative, you have disadvantage on the roll. I believe this is different than a surprise condition, if that makes sense. This is an effect of the incapacitated condition. Yeah. So I'm imagining we're still going to get a surprise round that works similar to how it is in 5th edition.
Probably. Also, you can technically move while incapacitated.
Yes, you could before. You can now.
Okay.
Incapacitated kind of just means something is preventing you from, like, your mind is not focused on the combat, it's focused on something else. So this happens when you're like in a I think it's like a cloud kill or something, and you're coughing.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's right. Sorry, when I hear the word incapacitated, I think
you're thinking paralyzed. Yeah, you're thinking paralyzed.
I'm thinking like unconscious, not.
Yeah. Which those two conditions give the incapacitated condition.
Right.
But it's so interesting stuff.
So I'm assuming the ones that aren't here probably would function the same as they do currently.
I think
I would imagine so. I mean, this is the rules glossary. So these are terms that came up.
Yeah.
In
anytime
the course
you saw
of this.
An asterisk, it's down.
Yeah.
Right.
So they could get more of them as time goes on that are revised, but this is the ones that were relevant to the information presented previously in the packet. So speaking of which, inspiration.
Again, they're removing agency from the DMs.
Sure. I mean, you're giving them the ability to have a reroll, right? That you're giving. Well, you're giving yourself advantage on that, but you're doing so before you roll the dice, right? So obviously different than the lucky condition, which allows you to reroll after the case. So that works the same. The part about gaining inspiration, where the DM also can award inspiration, That's the same. The part about rolling a natural 20, I think it's too much on top of a critical hit.
Yep.
Yes.
Because you're effectively giving them the very high likely chance of doing it again on the next hit.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can you can chain criticals with this.
Yeah. I think if maybe they could limit it to the...
Oh no, you can never have more than one instance of inspiration if something gives... Oh, you already have it. Never mind.
Yeah. So
one at a time, not once per day.
Yeah, but what I think here though is, if maybe for going back to kind of how skills and saves are now auto successes, maybe the point is you take out the auto success part from skills and saves, and you give inspiration when somebody rolls a natural 20 on a skill or a save. It's still not an auto success, but you're giving something to them because they rolled the highest possible thing on the die, which is the best that they could ever do. Right. And it doesn't happen for attacks. Right. So attacks,
I would be okay.
The natural 20 focus is getting
that.
Crits. The skills and save natural 20 is giving you inspiration.
Right. I would be okay with that because you don't currently get anything if you roll nat 20 on a skill.
So I like that reworking of it, and I think that would do better because you're then not necessarily going to chain crits, right?
Yeah.
Right, because you could say use inspiration, be like, I use inspiration on this attack.
Yeah, and don't forget though, the musician feat gives
you inspiration,
which is
after a short or long rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And humans get inspiration on a long rest.
And maybe this is a factor of them noticing that not a lot of people play with inspiration, or it doesn't come up all that often.
I don't think it's supposed to though.
Well, I feel like as a DM, I almost forget about it half the time, and then occasionally, if for the instance where that Fox was talking about previously, where he had something in his personality traits that he brought up in the game as like an answer to a question. I gave him inspiration for that moment because I forgot that he had that as a personality trait, and that's a perfect answer for what his character would have had, right?
I don't want to sound like you're biased towards me, but in this campaign you've given me inspiration like at least 3 times.
Sure.
Whereas some people haven't gotten inspiration at all.
I got it once.
I feel like I give it out to people that make decisions based off of their character. Because
you gave me inspiration when I remembered I had those Fisher goo arrows in my quiver and killed a troll with it.
Well, yeah, but that was an interesting use of those things, right? Because you also had to make those arrows. You made them specifically for the purpose of using them later, and then you remembered to use them in a really cool fashion, right? So that I gave you inspiration because that's engaging with the game, right? It should be a reward for engaging with the story and engaging with your character in a way that's more based off of role play choices than it is off of the
by having inspiration about your character, right?
Sure. And I think that's my biggest gripe with this is getting inspiration. Like it's like I got inspiration from the DM. Like I must have done something right. It's a reward mechanism for playing well and in an interesting way. And now you're
basing it off a mechanical decision.
It's like having cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Sure. You're just getting it too often. But I think we talked about the musician feat possibly doing more of a bardic inspiration thing than actual inspiration, which they should change the names of these things because people get confused about them all the time. But regardless, it should that should be more bardic inspiration. I'm okay with the natural 20 on a skill check, maybe not even a save, maybe just a skill check, being what gives you inspiration, because I feel like the save really has nothing to do with you as a character,
right?
or as a role play decision. It's just that you rolled well on getting out of something that the DM tried to do to you. I think for the barbarian who rolls a natural 20 on persuading a shopkeeper to to drop his prices by a ridiculous amount because he rolled a natural 20, that should be an inspiration. He's feeling good about himself after that moment. That's what that inspiration's supposed to be.
Right.
Now,
He may not have passed the DC, but
Yeah.
he still got something for it.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it is inspiration is almost a game function of what's going on at the table, right? When a player does something that makes all the other players be like, oh, dang, that was interesting. That is inspiration outside of game to everybody else to do something that cool as well. But it's also then can be inspiration mechanically, inside the game. And in that mind, I don't even necessarily know if the player should necessarily get the inspiration, but maybe the other people at the table should get the inspiration because they're inspired by that person, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I like the inspiration mechanic. I don't necessarily know if I like how often they're giving it to people now.
Yeah.
Because
also, you lose it after a long rest?
That was always the case.
Was it?
Yeah, I just don't really play like that.
Oh, okay. Oops.
Because
Oopsies.
to be honest with you, if I had to keep track of who has inspiration every time, it would be like one person, every 3 months, as opposed to, somebody saving that for a moment down the road, which, the losing inspiration portion does kind of make sense. Like, you're not going to be inspired 5 levels from now about something you did 5 levels ago.
That's true.
So
And
I get the reasoning.
We typically use them pretty soon after getting them.
Sure. But yeah, like I said, I think they're just giving it too often, and I think, like you said, they're taking that out of the DM's hands.
Yeah.
Which is bringing it more into a core mechanic than a kind of pseudo variant rule that it currently is. So
it also almost reminds me of like what they did with fourth edition, where like they video gamified it, right? Like, they're tying a lot of things to mechanics here, where like that's a very video game design mindset, where like this isn't a video game. This is real people talking to real people, and actual human interaction being role played, right, within a game.
Going to the actual unarmed strike description in the glossary, anyone that because unarmed strike is something that anybody can do, can decide on a hit it causes one of the following effects. Either you can damage or grapple or shove. Right? Now, the Tavern Brawler, which is a feat that we talked about earlier, gives you the ability to damage and shove. So you're still getting benefit from that. But this I like because it's wrapping up grapple, which is currently an attack, or you can use it as an attack, into unarmed strike, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just moved 2 things from somewhere else into here. It's not really, it's not a change, right? Like, you could always replace one of your attacks with a shove or a grapple.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
But it does make it a little more clear, because I could never find the rules for shoving an opponent or knocking them prone. So I like that it's a little more prevalent in the rules now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, going into the spell list, they have these 0 level spells and the 1st level spells. I don't see anything that I'm recognizing as new for many of these.
Oh, I didn't even read through the spell list.
Yeah, well, just a brief thing. I don't think we're getting any new spells.
At least not yet.
I don't know how I feel about the removal of the class spell lists. I feel like they did a good job of giving spells to people that into certain classes that would kind of make sense for that class to have. But as it sits right now, like anybody could take Vicious Mockery, whereas before it was bards, and I think warlocks could also take it.
Yeah.
But that was a cool thing about the bards, is like that's your types of spells, is things about you talking, right? Whereas now it's just kind of all over the place. I mean,
if you notice, Eldritch Blast is missing from this list.
Yes, it is. Which I think could be an indicator that they're going to make it a feature of the Warlock class.
Yeah, I hope so.
As it probably should be.
Yes. Now, what'll be interesting is if, maybe instead of the current packs that we have, we get a pact that actually enhances the Eldritch Blast.
A pact with the blaster.
Or Pact of the Tome enhances it or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Like
yeah, that would make more sense, honestly.
And maybe it'd be cool if your pact keeper, or whoever you have your pact with, decided what type of damage your Eldritch Blast did. Something just that would be interesting to mechanically change.
I think it also opens up for more variety in invocations and
sure,
anything that might affect spells later on. It might make it immune from, right? Any kind of nerfs to spells. Like if they might, one of my biggest problems is with 5e right now is cantrip scaling, right?
Sure.
It'd be nice if, and having 0 level spells on there leads me to believe that they are getting rid of cantrip scaling.
I mean, it says cantrips right there, though.
Yeah, but that might just be for people to understand what those are, right?
Yeah, I mean, couple of things here. I mean, just looking at the spell list themselves, there's a clear discrepancy in amount of spells per spell list. So, like, the druids, which I'm sure are going to only be able to choose off of the primal spell list.
Primal is druids and rangers.
Yeah.
Divine is clerics and paladins. Wizards and sorcerers are arcane. I have no idea what spell list the warlock's going to take.
Probably arcane.
I would imagine arcane. Yeah.
But the thing is, warlocks typically don't get all the spells that wizards and sorcerers get, though.
Right.
Do they?
But they could also... I see, like, they don't usually get all of them, right?
Well, it's because it was a specific spell list to that.
Right, exactly. Like, wizards and sorcerers typically always have the same spell list.
Goodness, maybe we're not even getting warlock anymore.
Arcane is under... Sorry, warlocks are under arcane spells. It's in the...
Yeah, so, I mean, that's good for warlocks because they get access to a lot more different spells now.
Yeah,
which, to be fair, a lot of the spell restrictions on warlocks right now are kind of arbitrary, if you ask me. Like,
sure.
They already get a limited number of casts, and now you're limiting them on what they can take. Like, they're channeling primordial beings, right? Like,
well, so by that, they're not necessarily primordial beings.
Yeah,
you get what I mean. Like, they're channeling extraplanar. Well,
because if it was more of a primordial being, then they would take spells from the primal spell list, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I mean, if they're taking powers from a celestial, they take from the divine spell list, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have the Magic Initiative feat, which is now keyed into the spell lists. I don't like that the cleric spell list is inherently so much smaller. I know that it already was, so it's not really a huge change, but I don't know. It just feels like, you're not getting access to as much magic possibilities. And I think they should maybe...
I don't think it's changed at all. I think it was really
just... I know, but I'm just saying, I think in general, I would like to see more added. I mean, they have Tasha's and Xanathar's out. I honestly don't understand why they didn't just add those spells to the spell list. Like, I get that you're making it so people wouldn't buy the book then, but like, I don't know.
Bro, why
Well,
is
it's
True
not
Strike
like it has
still
the
on
spell
here?
descriptions here, so they'd still have to.
Yeah.
Anyway,
why do we still have True Strike, guys? Come on.
Hey, maybe they changed it. Maybe it's a bonus action now. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm also not seeing the
wouldn't that be too
blade
strong,
spells
then?
either. So
It would be crazy
you-
strong, yeah.
Yeah, if you made True Strike a first level spell, but made it have a bonus action casting time, I think that would be better.
But if you look at it, it's also an arcane spell, not a divine spell. So paladins can't take it anyway.
you wouldn't take
what
it
I
as
mean?
paladin in the first place. It is, it's garbage. But yeah.
Well, yeah, but like if they changed it, they wouldn't.
Oh yeah.
But then like I mean, it's wizards. Because I think the idea is that it's True Strike a self spell or is it
it's
ranged?
Self and touch.
Was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's self and touch. So I don't think you can give it to anyone either.
True Strike would make sense for a bard to take, maybe, because you're buffing somebody else up. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this to say, I think that wraps us up here for our conversation of this. Let us know down in the comments what you think about this. I mean, about our thoughts. Obviously,
and your thoughts,
and your thoughts, obviously. Yeah. You guys have had maybe a little bit more time than some of us have had with this material, so maybe there's been some things announced that clarify some things. So if we got something wrong, let us know. We'll try to keep apprised when new playtest material comes out, and maybe work that into future Fixing 5e videos. Maybe it's its own video. We don't really know yet. It depends on how often they come out with these, just with our current content schedule. But if you want to be kept apprised of that stuff, make sure you're subscribing. Make sure that you like this video to let us know that you even enjoy this kind of content. And make sure to sneak attack that notification bell to be notified when another video of this type comes out, or any other videos that come out. But until then, I think that's going to wrap us up here, guys. So join us next time we slide into DemDMs. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.